In this video, I'm going to be talking about what is the nodal return. So in astrology, and you probably heard this, thrown around, and I'm going through this right now, and I already did on January 2nd of this year. The nodal return. So if any of you, because right now the North Node and South Node, the North Node is in Taurus, the South Node is in Scorpio, and if any of you watching have this placement, then you're going through a nodal return, or you have gone through that, or you will, depending upon the degree of where your North Node and South Node is placed. And so, this is going to be important to determine if it's going to be at the beginning of the transit or towards the middle of the transit or towards the end. The North Node and South Node are two bodies that move, 180 degrees apart from each other, and they always move backwards. So, if you have your North Node and South Node at 28 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, for example, then you would have your nodal return, your exact nodal return towards the beginning of the transit. And then if you had your North Node in Leo, South Node in Aquarius at 2 degrees, you would have your nodal return towards the end of the transit. But so, I just want to talk briefly about the North Node and South Node so that we can put all these pieces together here. So, the North Node and South Node, as I said, are two points that are, of the moon. And, the eclipses occur. So whatever signs the nodes are in, that's the axis where the eclipses occur. So the axis is there's 12 signs in the zodiac, and so, there's, you can divide them into 6 pairs of one sign being opposite another. So the sign polarities are Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini, Sagittarius, Cancer, Capricorn, Leo, Aquarius, and Virgo, Pisces. And it's an axis where there's themes and qualities, but then the two signs are opposite, but they overlap, and you can't really separate two signs from another. You have to balance out the good, positive qualities of each sign, what it has to offer, and not just abandoning or leaving behind or putting that particular sign in the back burner. It's about integrating and balancing the qualities of both signs, and you can do that a couple of different ways depending upon what kind of nodal return you have. And, there's more than one, and I'm going to get into that here. So, the North Node and South Node represents, there's a couple symbols in astrology. The North Node is the dragon's head, where you want to go because you're moving upward, and then the dragon's tail is the South Node. Another symbol you can think about is the scales, like you're balancing the scales, but also the seesaw, or teeter-totter, of where if you're going too far towards your South Node, you need to bring in your North Node. But then if you're going towards your North Node, you need a place to come back to. So, with your South Node. So those are a couple of things. Your South Node is also your karma. It deals with past lives, your early childhood, so your early life, and the lessons and qualities that you're bringing in on a soul level, an emotional memory-based level that you're comfortable and that are familiar and known to you and that you're used to, but don't serve you. And the South Node's often where we need to release those qualities and let them go, release them out and disperse them out the window, out into the sky, but still hold on to them in a way. We sort of need to walk up with a big uh, kind of pack of stuff, burdens of stuff on our backs when we're walking up the mountain, and then we need to let it go. And then we see the rainbow when we let it go. When we let go of our attachments of the South Node, because it relates to where we're attached to those old paradigms and ways of being, and how that doesn't serve us because it's comfortable. But when we're stuck in our comfort zone, we can feel stuck, or like we're hitting a dead end, or we're not getting what we want, or we're not happy, where we don't feel like our life is meaningful to us, necessarily speaking. And we find a greater sense of purpose when we move towards our North Node. And the North Node can often be really uncomfortable, scary territory, but we have to be willing to face the unknown, willing to go there and get our head out of the sand and get out of the hole that we have dug up for ourselves, and be willing to go into that scary, new, uncomfortable territory to then go through those sort of, challenges and those new experiences which we have to cultivate and acquire, and get used to, and things we have to attain, qualities that we have to attain in order to feel more happy and fulfilled. And the North Node isn't really all that natural. It is it's not like Saturn, which involves hard work, discipline, structure. I have another video about the Saturn return, but it is where certain things can be scary and certain things can be um, difficult, but we need to be willing to go in that direction. And it can feel quite, natural. And if we listen to our soul, then it's, the North Node is sort of a, natural way that we get out of our comfort zone. And we sort of, I believe that we sort of naturally go towards our North Node in life because, on a soul level, we want a life of meaning. So, we go there. We have those, experiences. But it does take sort of some, stretching into, and sort of we're moving up, that kind of direction, moving upward and not downward, moving forward, not backward, and all those kinds of things. So the South Node is qualities that we need to release, and really looks at the dark side or shadow side of whatever sign that we have. And so the North Node looks at Dharma. It looks at so the South Node's karma, we're sort of, bringing in, and then the North Node is Dharma, of sort of a destiny, and just what we need to bring into this life, balancing out the South Node, with North Node. And also it's like where, there's an astrology that I was watching had a metaphor of your South Node sitting in your fuzzy, slippers, and, in your home all comfortable, unless that comfort does not feel right, or whatever does not feel right on an intuitive level. What's right for you. What, where you need to go, etc. But your North Node is you're going, like your northern star. Like they say, your northern star. You're going on a boat, and you're willing to sail towards this particular direction, but it's not about abandoning the south node and only going towards your north node. It's about balancing the two, because the south node gets looked at as bad, and what we need to move away from, and we're only moving away from the dark and shadow sides of the south node. That's what we need to release. But ultimately we're going toward our north node, but we're also balancing that with the south node. We can't put one over the other. So anyway, it's important to look at your north node sign, and then the degree to determine when you're going to be having your nodal return. If you haven't had it yet, when the transiting south node and north node hit that same sign in that same degree as it is in your natal chart, then you have a nodal return. So, and your north node is in Taurus at 28 degrees, for example. When the north node is in Taurus and it hits 28 degrees, you have your nodal return and that degree, and also the house placement when it hits that same house. That's another, just with general astrology, understanding your north node and south node placement, you also need to understand not only the sign, but also the house placement of where, which area of life do you show those south node qualities, and which area of life do you need to move toward your north node qualities, and all the houses 1 through 12 corresponds to the different sign placements. So the fourth house, then you need to develop north node qualities toward home and family and emotional foundations, and the other houses. So anyway, so you experience that every 18 to 19 years in your life, and you experience it at ages and you experience this at ages 18, 37, 55, and 74 years old. So you usually have 4 nodal returns in your entire life, and they occur every 18 and 19 years. And so your nodal return is the time where your soul is calling you to evolve and find means of happiness, fulfillment, of where it's more clear than it was, than other times, and you're having a clearer path. And there's circumstances, people, places, situations that are, getting you to move towards your north node. Either you are doing that work on yourself to move towards your north node, or life and circumstances are moving you toward that point. You're just being sort of guided and steered by the outside to move toward, which isn't always the best way, which isn't always the easiest way. It does come highly recommended to do that sort of soul work and to be aware of your north node and move toward that and bring that into your life, as opposed to just being in your south node and then your life circumstances. Then you're finding that now I need to let go of things, I need to change, and that's scary, not always very comfortable, and change isn't always comfortable. And human beings, it's like we want change, but then we want to stay stuck in our own comfort zones, and it isn't about that, because it's I think there's just a formula out there. I'm just kind of coming up with this, that change plus growth equals evolution, and that's ultimately the the nodal return is a time where you evolve again towards happiness and fulfillment. and it's soul growth, and it's aligning with your soul agreements, so what your soul signed up for when you were born, the certain plans and dreams and goals that your ego didn't have, but your soul had, and that lessons and experiences that your soul signed up to experience in this lifetime. Um, and it's where you're moving towards your soul calling. It's about listening to your soul, listening to your intuition. And the North Node is destiny. It relates to destiny, where you're destined. The North Node is fated, it deals with fate too. And so, so the nodal return is, really a turning point in your life, a time of transition. And so, there's two nodal returns. So there's the nodal return happening at the ages of 18, 37, 55, or 74. But then there's also the reverse nodal return. And I believe I experienced this back in 2013 because I have I have my North Node in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio. And the nodes at that time, from August 27th of 2012 to February 23rd of 2014, the North Node was in Scorpio and the South Node in Taurus. How do I know this? Well, I was doing some calculations and I was doing some research to find out about the nodes and the exact dates of when the nodes would enter two signs and when they would exit two signs. So I did my research on the previous transits of the North Node and South Node since the beginning of this millennia or this century. I was doing that research because I was curious and I wanted to know that information. So when you have your reverse nodal return, your age is 27, an age before you have your Saturn return, 28 to 30. I have another video about that. If you're 27, 46, 64, or 83 years old, you experience your reverse nodal return, where the North Node and South Node are in the exact opposite signs in the same degree as they were in your natal birth chart, but the exact opposite signs. So you have your North Node in Taurus, your South Node in Scorpio. You would have experienced your reverse nodal return between August 27th, 2012 through February 23rd, 2014. That was the time period. Within that time period, you would have experienced this. And so, and this is sort of, your nodal return, every 18, 19 years. You're moving toward your North Node. It's more about your North Node. But then your reverse nodal return, well, let's take a look at the South Node. So you have your first reverse nodal return at age 9, and then at 18, you have your official nodal return. Your sort of life is changing. You're graduating, from high school, getting, a job or doing whatever. And then 10 years later, you hit that Saturn return period where it really gets real and it really gets serious. And again, the reverse nodal return is going back into your South Node. And, with the North Node, you'll move towards that in one way or another. So, yeah, and the more you hold on to your South Node, the harder and more uncomfortable and more unhappy you will be. Yeah. letting go of those north node qualities, even if it's hard. Um, and I just want to say another thing about the nodal return is time where you can heal negative patterns that are holding you back and not serving you, and evolve through those patterns and really step into who you want to be in your life, as a spiritual being first, human being second. That's how it goes. So you can step into your authenticity more with your nodal return. But then, a couple of things about the reverse nodal return, because this video is about both, is, what is the high road of your south node? The higher qualities, the higher vibration qualities that, you need to balance out and go towards during this time, and it's sort of where you're stepping back and bringing in those qualities, um, to balance that out. And it's sort of, where you're, reflecting, like, Mercury retrograde. So whenever a planet is in retrograde, just like the nodes are, they move retrograde, they move back. When planets are retrograde, we go inside. The energy is inward. We're reflecting, we're reviewing, we're reevaluating, we're revising our path in life, and we're going back often. We're not necessarily moving forward, but we're retracing our steps as planets are moving. They have a path and they're moving, in a direction, and then they station, and then they go back over the path. That they're retracing that path, retracing the, experiences, lessons, that we're being faced with, or we're, going through at that time. So it is sort of compared to, when a planet goes retrograde, is, we're going back and we're reviewing stuff. Closure of older issues, past issues, and sort of seeing and moving towards the positive sides of our south node. And it can be confusing because our soul wants to move toward our north node, and now the world sort of needs to go toward the south node, as things can be. It's like, is it an easier time, or is it more difficult? Maybe it's easier when you're younger, more difficult when you're older. Unlike a Saturn return, which can be more difficult when you're younger and easier when you're older. Um, it's just confusing when, we're thinking about wanting to move in a particular direction, and now we need to go back to the drawing board, and of where we're encountering lessons that are sort of unfamiliar yet familiar at the same time. And it's sort of not the sort of positive, fulfilling lessons that we sign up to learn when we're moving toward our north node, but at the same time, it would be important for us to integrate those lessons, because again, we're balancing it out, balancing north node and south node. So again, the nodal return is the north node return, and then the reverse nodal return is the south node return. So this is my video about that. Thank you for tuning in.